Springtrap! A horde of the balloon boys emerged from the cave, shaking back and forth on unsteady feet, their pointed teeth chattering loudly as they wobbled forward with staring eyes. Not again! I hate these things, Jessica cried. You and me both, sister. You and me both. Up top. Can't high-five me up top because you're a fictional character. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where... Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. FNAF 6 is canceled. Looks like I had more staying power than you, Scotty C. Let's be honest, though. It's gonna be more delayed than canceled, really. And there's still the movie, the merch, a second book just released, a third book coming soon, and a fourth one on the way. So just like the animatronics, the series itself keeps getting reborn in new forms with increasingly absurd names. Withered Freddy, Nightmare Chica, Not So Fun Time Franchise. Speaking of ridiculous new names for the same old cast animals, let's talk about the latest addition to the roster, the Twisted Animatronics. Stars of the new FNAF book that came out at the end of June. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this book was definitely a step up from the first. It had 200 less pages. Oh, sick bird, y'all! You need a calendar, man! I mean, don't take that as too high of a compliment. In 200 pages, you still had a college robotics major going to the scene of a murder and then touching the victim, getting blood all up on her hands, and no one on the police force even batting an eye over the blatant crime scene tampering that was happening. Then there's the fact that in the book, multiple balloon boys, including BB, JJ, and whatever other ridiculous combination of letters you can come up with, are canon too. But you know what? I still gotta appreciate lines like page 183, you never know when a corpse may wander out of the shadows wearing a rabbit suit. Even the books have become self-aware of their own absurdity at this point. Now, at this point, Scott has made it clear that the books and the games are separate canons. And while that may be true, both are still shambling their way out of Scott's mind brain. We all know that Scott leaves plenty of holes in his stories, details or events that are left purposefully vague so that we can theorize to fill in those gaps. But what's interesting is that he leaves different holes in each series. And by looking at the two series in tandem, those holes start to fill themselves in with events from the sister series. The sister location! No, just no. Anyway, reading Twisted Ones was like reading the crib notes for Sister Location, because a lot, and I mean a lot, of that game's weirdness became more and more clear as I turned more and more pages. So FNAF 6 may be dead, but we're gonna go back to beat the dead horse animatronic that is Sister Location. Can we name it Horsey? Horsey, the dead horse animatronic, and we just beat it every time we do an episode about one of these games? Great. Dead horse animatronic Horsey one final time, because thanks to the Twisted Ones, we have all the information we need to help that game make just a little bit more sense. First, how do we know that this book is anywhere close to related to Sister Location? Well, it's easy. The answer's in the title, The Twisted Ones. The recurring threat in the book are these so-called twisted animatronics. But even though we're supposed to think that this is a new breed of killer robot, they're not. Not at all, in fact. We've seen them before in Sister Location. Check out this description and let me know if it sounds familiar. Page 90. The creature had no fur and its face was smooth. It had a short muzzle and oval ears sticking out from the sides of its head. It had the general appearance of an animal's head, though much larger than the animatronic animals from Freddy's. Running down the center of its face was a long, straight split, exposing wires and a line of metal frame. A thick plastic material was stuck to the face in large patches. So the twisted animatronics have a plastic-like covering and a face that splits open. It certainly sounds like the aesthetic of the Funtime animatronics, but it doesn't stop there. These guys were built to be big because their mission is to capture children, like Pokeballs, out for revenge. Page 140. Freddy's face slid across the bed like a python. His head lost its shape as it folded outward, taking hold of her feet and beginning to swallow, moving slowly upward as she fought not to scream or fight, his cheeks and chin dislocating further. It no longer resembled a living thing. Before she could struggle further, her arms were pinned to her side, trapped inside the thing. Only her head remained free. She gasped for a last breath, then was violently scooped up consumed by the creature. She done got scooped. Then, a few pages later, she was inside a cavity made for a human being, but the suit was moving with complete autonomy. In case you've forgotten, this is exactly what we see in Sister Location's hidden animatronic blueprints. Oversized robots with special containment features to lure in and trap small children. Even the description for how people get scooped into the animatronics is reminiscent of Sister Location's horrific ice cream minigame with Baby. Page 92. The animatronic's arms lifted and its chest opened like an iron gate. Its metal pieces slid out of place to reveal a dark, gaping pit where sharp spikes and spring locks were just barely visible. It was a trap, waiting to be triggered. She beat against its bent and damaged arm, but the other arm steadily forced her closer to the chest cavity. So why does any of this, and the Twisted Ones as a whole book, matter in the context of the FNAF games? Well, in the opening sequence of Sister Location, we hear that the Funtime animatronics were built by William Afton.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
A guy who, up to that point in the series, had only been named in the first book, Silver Eyes. By the end of the book, we learn that William is Purple Guy, the killer who kidnaps kids while wearing a golden Bonnie suit. But Silver Eyes also introduced us to other important characters for the FNAF series as a whole, including Henry, no last name given, William's partner and the more creative half of the company, the one who actually created the animatronics. So after reading Silver Eyes, we were left with William, the business guy who doesn't create robots but does kill children, and Henry, the creator who does create robots but doesn't kill children. Got all that? Good. Now, in my FNAF 5 Decoded video, I drew parallels between Henry and a mysterious figure that we saw during a secret cutscene of FNAF World, both of whom create animatronics and commit suicide. Long story short, in the game, he ends his own life because he created Baby, a robot that he's ashamed of. In the book, why Henry kills himself is still a big part of the mystery. Now, if you want more information about the parallels between these two characters, click the eye icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen because I go more in-depth there. But after that video, it seemed like a lock. We finally had some solid leads as to who these key players in the games were, and the clues were coming from Silver Eyes. But then that opening cinematic from Sister Location played the first time we all booted up the game. Afton acknowledged that he was the one who created the new robots, and everyone, including myself, was like, well, there went that theory. Afton was supposed to be the business guy, not the creator. So if he's the one who builds animatronics in the game, then Henry must not exist in this universe. Scott had pulled the wool over my eyes, or at least retconned huge parts of his story to keep me off the scent once again. Except not. The theory was right the first time. The Twisted Ones book confirms that both Henry and William Afton create animatronics, with the originals being built by Henry and the twisted Funtime style animatronics being Afton's. On page 92 of the Twisted Ones, we see the main character Charlie, daughter of Henry, talking about one of these new animatronics. Whoa, the hardware, the joints, it's older technology. Maybe he made them earlier? I don't know. I recognize some of this as my dad's work, but then a lot of it's foreign to me. Someone else may have had a hand in it. I'm not sure if my dad made it or not, but I have a feeling he's the one who buried it. Oh yeah, by the way, in the book, the twisted animatronics bury themselves during the day and come out at night to nab people. Animatronic zombies. Why not? It is probably one of the things that makes more sense in the book, honestly. Anyway, it's continually hinted at throughout the book that these animatronics weren't built by Henry. My father wouldn't have used this. He always put stops so that the joints couldn't do things humans can't do. Then again, on page 113, the bear was frightening, misshapen, an imitation of Freddy created by someone else. It was a strange variation, into which her father had never breathed life, but William Afton, Dave, did. And then finally, William Dave, maybe Purple Guy, Springtrap Afton confirms it on page 186.
Did you think my robots would be as poorly designed as your father's?
So there you go. The original theory still stands. Henry and William can both be active players in the game universe because both build animatronics. And if you need even more evidence, then think about it this way. At the end of FNAF World, Henry admits that he created Baby, and then he kills himself ashamed of his creation. At the beginning of Sister Location, we see that Afton is still alive, he's claiming creation rights, and he's obviously proud of his new robots. Then, at the end of the game, his son Michael Afton says that he's gonna come find his father.
Father, it's me, Michael. I'm going to come find you.
Thus, William is still alive, Henry is dead, but both must be a part of these games. And that's an important detail to solidify because the book also confirms something that FNAF theorists had been speculating about since the release of Sister Location. One of the weirdest details from that game was hidden in Funtime Freddy's room, where a map of FNAF 4's house was above and directly connected to the map of the sister location facility. It was also something that was hinted at throughout the Silver Eyes novel. Again, something that I covered in a previous theory, linked via those iCards in the upper right-hand corner. But Twisted Ones not only confirms this underground bunker for sister location exists, it also confirms whose house it's built under. Henry's. In the novel, we see the Twisted animatronics capture the main character Charlie, again, Henry's daughter, and drop her off in some remixed version of the FNAF 2 pizzeria. I say remixed because, like a lot of this book, it's a weird hybridization of the things that happen in the games and other stuff. It's got the carousel and balloon boys from the FNAF 2 location, but then there's a cave and a waterfall for some reason. Because why not? FNAF 7, Under the Sea! Earlier in the book, Charlie and her boyfriend John, who admittedly has to be the most patient and loving boyfriend in the history of the universe, like, Charlie shows him no sense of affection and he is there just like a sad puppy dog. It is tragic. Anyway, those two go to visit Charlie's childhood home, which has been destroyed by a storm. And what they find is that the storm has broken down a wall to reveal a new room, a secret room, hidden in their house that Charlie had never known about. Quote, "That's not even part of the house. I've never seen this room before. The walls were made of dark concrete, and the room was small and windowless. A box jammed into the house and sealed away beneath the rooms. Whatever's out there killing people came from there. When the storm broke the wall, a section of the house was sealed until the storm broke through." But what's really important here is what's revealed when Charlie and the gang escape from that underground pizzeria I mentioned. On page 194, "We're out! We're okay! Don't you see where we are?" she whispered. Slowly she walked the length of the room, gesturing to the 4 enormous pits in the floor, one of which contained a headless, half-buried robot. "John, this is my dad's house. It's the room we found." They escaped upward out of the underground pizzeria and wound up in Henry's house. So slowly the pieces start to fit together. Henry in the book buries and tries to seal off the Twisted animatronics and then commits suicide out of guilt for helping William to build these things in the first place, just like we see him do in FNAF World. And just like we see the underground bunker underneath a normal, everyday home in sister location. And I'm just getting started, because while all this other information is certainly interesting, Twisted Ones exposed a detail from sister location so tiny and so minute that we all overlooked it in our excitement over decoding underground storage facilities and tracking animatronic eye color. And yet, much like that infamous Chica Beak clue from FNAF 2 and 4, this small detail is so monumentally earth-shattering to the franchise as we know it that I can't not talk about it here. On Sister Location's Night 3, Michael Afton's big task is to remove a power module from Funtime Freddy. After following the narrator's instructions on which buttons to press and what order to press them in, Freddy's chest pops open and the power module reveals itself. And it's this little blinking black dot, oddly unconnected to literally anything else in the animatronic, and in a pretty unusual place, just kinda stuck on, slightly off to the side. I remember thinking at the time that this was an odd design choice for something that was supposedly powering the whole animatronic, but how would I know? No one, and I mean no one, called this thing out, considering Night 3 in general was just kinda forgettable, overshadowed by the misery that was the Spring Lock challenge on Night 4, and the fascinating map Easter eggs hidden on Night 2. But of course, this is FNAF, and no detail is too small in this series, and Twisted Ones blew the lid off this disc's true purpose, its little mystery being so important that it's the reason they're called the Twisted Ones in the first place. Stick with me now, because I'm not making any of this up. That little device from Sister Location is actually a mind control disc. Pause for all the stunned gasps and requisite eye rolls. I don't blame either of those reactions. Let me explain. Throughout the book, anytime the Twisted animatronics show up, people start to feel weird side effects. Page 91 and 92. As her hand touched the creature, a wave of nausea hit her, but it lasted only a split second. Something else about it had transformed at the same time. Its artificial skin took on a luminescence, and its movements were fluid and sure. Its casing suddenly appeared to have skin and fur, though they were blurry, flickering like a trick of the light. Now, after destroying one of these Twisted animatronics, Charlie and boy toy John discover a weird object embedded in the machine. Quote, "It was a flat disc, about the size of a $50 coin. She held it up to her ear. Wow, that's really high-pitched. I can barely hear it. The sound is why you feel sick. It emits some kind of signal. It changes what those things look like. It changes our perception of what they look like," Charlie corrected. Freddy's image flickered like static on a television screen. The color faded from his fur, then everything that made him Freddy winked out, leaving only a smooth plastic figure in his place. It looked like the rest of the animals in the room, a blank mannequin stripped of its characteristics. These aren't made out of fur and fabric. trick. They're made by us, by twisting our minds. You shot the chip, you killed the illusion. Twisting our minds, you say? Roll credits! Now, for as ridiculous as a small disc that emits sounds that gets your brain to change the way it perceives the world around you sounds, it's actually kinda based in scientific fact. The brain is constantly having to process tons of information, so it is always looking for shortcuts. For instance, if I show you this text, you're probably gonna be able to read it really quickly, right? It's because the brain isn't reading text by individual letters, but rather by the context of the other words around it, the way it expects the sentence to go, and making guesses off the most frequent short words that it sees on a day-to-day basis. The same is generally true in visual perception. Without going into detail here, it's how optical illusions work, and there's been plenty of research on how the brain fills in visual gaps that it experiences. So the idea that a disc is shooting out sounds that distract you, and thus cause your perception of reality to change to stuff that you're actually more familiar with isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. At least, not as far-fetched as robots haunted by dead children getting into an all-out rumble against other animatronics built to vor unsuspecting victims, which is literally a thing that happens in the climax of this book. Not to spoil it or anything. And of course, it probably goes without saying, but these little mind-controlled discs were created by none other than dear old dad, William Afton, page 99. There was writing along one edge. She had to bring the piece of plastic close to her face to make the letters out. They were tiny and written in an old-fashioned flowing script. They read, Afton Robotics, LLC. Charlie dropped the disc immediately. Afton? William Afton. That's my father's old partner. That's Dave's real name, John finished. I thought he was just a business partner for Freddy's, she said slowly. I guess he did a bit more than that. So why and how does this matter in the context of the games? I actually think it has the potential to explain a lot. First, from the book. So the animatronics aren't changing shape, we're just being distracted. What's the purpose of that, though? To earn our trust, to look more friendly, to look more real, to lure kids closer. And that's something we definitely see at play throughout Sister Location. It was even in the hidden animatronic blueprints that we discovered. Weird technology put in place to lure and trap kids. Now, this is speculation, but remember Sister Location's secret control room that allowed us to observe the crying child's bedroom, as well as other key locations from FNAF 4? On the map, they were labeled as observation rooms. Could that be what William was observing? The effects of his mind-twisting discs on children. Could FNAF 4 not have been a dream, a nightmare, a hospital hallucination, whatever, but rather the twisted dreams generated by these distraction discs? But even beyond that, I think these discs explain a topic that I have actively avoided throughout all my theories on this series. The phantom animatronics from FNAF 3. Remember way back to FNAF 3 when this was supposed to be the final boss battle? There was only one real animatronic out to get you, Springtrap. All the other main jump scares were hallucinations in a building that had a high-pitched whining noise the whole time. And especially when it came to the puppet attacking you. Weird that these hallucinations are happening around a time when there's high-pitched noises around, like these discs emanate. And notice that the ventilation in the game would only tend to drop after you had been scared, not before. It's as though these hallucinations aren't coming from a lack of oxygen, like Phone Dude says, but rather from some other source. A disc specifically designed to manipulate your mind and bring forward all the horrific memories that you have buried in it. And regardless of whether you think Springtrap is Michael Afton or William Afton, which is honestly a theory for a whole nother day, one thing you can't deny is that these discs, Springtrap, and the Afton family are all connected, meaning that their use in a game where you're coming into direct contact with a giant golden bunny definitely makes a whole lot of sense. Could they also be the explanation for the other random Easter eggs we've seen throughout the series? The Lolbit mask, and the Mini Rena's random appearances in the control room of Sister Location. The Phantom Freddy and Phantom Bonnie from FNAF 2. I mean, the FNAF 2 location does make an appearance of sorts in the book, with the discs hidden in the lights of the building. Maybe even the hallucinations of It's Me way back in FNAF 1. The ramification of discs like this changes everything, and we physically see them present in Sister Location. So even if Scott is tired of the franchise, that doesn't mean it has to end without the answers that we've all been waiting for. You know what? I'm here for you to try and put together this mess of a puzzle as a community of theorists. There's still plenty more to speculate about as the Twisted Ones opens the door to even more interesting and even more absurd ways of maiming and murdering slaughtering children with Chuck E. Cheese-style robotics. And I haven't even gotten to how I think the main character of the book series is probably a robot. But again, those are all theories for other days. In the meantime, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. You know, at this point, FNAF is 3 years old. 3 years. That means most of you younger fans of the series are probably hitting that special time in your life where hair starts to appear in places that it never used to before. Like in between your eyebrows, fusing them together to form the much dreaded unibrow. Take my advice, this is for your own good. Don't be like me. Don't make the mistake and think that a unibrow is okay. MatPat was a dark, dark time in my life that I choose to forget. No, learn from my mistakes and do the right thing. Get to shaving, my friends. Dealing with awkward body hair sucks, so why make the shaving process suck too? Treat yourself to the club. Dollar Shave Club, literally the best, easiest, and cheapest shave you will ever have. Why is it the best? Because their executive razor rocks. Metal and firm, standing head and shoulders above the flimsy plastic store razors that cost you even more. Why is it the easiest? Because screw having to put on pants and go out in public. Stay hidden away from the world while new razor heads and shave butter get delivered right to your door. No human interaction necessary, which is great for all you introverts watching right now. And why is it the cheapest? Because for a limited time, new members get their first month of the executive razor with a tube of the Dr. Carver's shave butter for only $5. And with free shipping. After that, razors are just a few bucks a month. That is, calculating it now with my math brain, a $15 value only available to you theorists right now exclusively at dollarshaveclub.com/MatPat. That's dollarshaveclub.com/MatPat. In your first month box, you get the awesome weighty handle, a full cassette of 4 executive cartridges, and a tube of shave butter. So say goodbye to MatPat and say hello to social acceptance and silky smoothness. Again, learn from my mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. Life post-puberty will never be the same. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a ridiculous math question in store for next week's episode that I need to go solve. I will see you then.